I have tried to film this video multiple times by now, and let's hope I get this one right. Hello. I have been on a hiatus, and kind of an unexpected hiatus recently, but I am so ready to get back into filming. My grandpa ended up passing away, and so it's been really busy and hectic, with family and dealing with that. And so I just haven't had any real time to just reflect and gather my thoughts on content that I wanted to film, just because it's been so loopy in my head about, worrying about my grandma and his passing and stuff. So just been dealing with that. And then we've had a hurricane pass through yesterday, so that was random. But that's not what I came on here to talk about, actually. I'm actually going to be talking about men and why they ghost and why they may disappear or pull away and lose interest. If you're new here, hello, I am Carly. I help men and women understand and communicate better with the opposite sex and create healthy, long-lasting, harmonious relationships. I am also a fashion model and speaker, and so if that sounds interesting to you, then hopefully you stick around for this or more of this content. Okay, so why do men suddenly get distant, ghost, pull away, suddenly disappear? Yep, sometimes this happens. You start talking to a guy, he seems very interested in you, things seem to be going great between you two, you feel like you really have potential with him in growing in a romantic relationship, and then all of a sudden, he disappears, he ghosts, he doesn't respond to text messages, he doesn't reach out and call, he just disappears out of your life, and you're wondering, what the heck happened? Where did he go? Was I not good enough for him? Did I say something wrong? All of these questions that come up in especially us as women, our heads. And because we tie so much of our self-worth into our romantic partnerships and men and how much we can impress them. And let me give you one reason why, and that is they fear commitment. Now, I was going to mention this one. A lot of men here in the Western world are very, very feminine, and they no longer believe in healthy, long-lasting, happy relationships and marriages with women. They listen to all the podcast bros and the social media gurus who spread a message that all women are liars, cheaters, whores, and cannot be trusted. And they are only after your money. They want to rob your money and run. They care nothing about you or your feelings. All they care about is what you can give them, what you can provide for them, and how much money they have to steal from you. Yes, this is the message that they are receiving from the podcast bros, and women cannot be trusted. And by the way, don't fall for this kind of stupidity, because these are also the same kinds of men who allow women whom they have no relationship or commitment to keep sleeping in their beds and hooking up and casually sleeping around, reinforcing their belief system about how all women are whorish, hoish, and cannot be trusted. So just remember that when men are out here doing this and then hipping and hopping about how women cannot be trusted because they're all hoes, yet they're sleeping with all of these hoes, okay, just know that they're not that smart. Okay, so guess what? They fear commitment, not only because of those narratives that they are hearing from podcast bros that they are casually coming across on the internet, because that is the popular content, right? But also because of their watching their parents' relationship growing up. They may have been a product of divorce, and maybe their parents had a nasty divorce, and unfortunately this has left the boy very scarred, in his relationship perceptions. So, because maybe his father told him that women are cheaters, liars, and whores, or women will only do you wrong, and blah, 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 all of this buffoonery belief system. He has now adopted that mentality and belief system and sees that it didn't work out for his parents, so why would it work out for him to commit to a woman himself? Now, here's the catch. It doesn't necessarily mean that all those men will cross out any potential of a relationship, all possibilities of it. They may still very much play the field and run around and try to fill voids and casually hook up and sleep with women, all of these things, but never fully and truly commit to one. So it doesn't mean that he just won't have a relationship at all. He might end up having a girlfriend, whatever, maybe just FWB. Apparently that's a thing too. Because women do, unfortunately, settle for that standard, right? So he might have all of those things, but just not quite ready to settle down and commit to a woman because of all of his fears of committing and that she is going to gold dig and give him a run for his money. Don't you just love me and my sense of sarcasm? Okay, next reason as to why men ghost or disappear suddenly or lose interest and pull away. And that is they may have come against their own issues and traumas and things that they may or may not be willing to face. Okay, when we are in relationship, our person is a reflection of us. We mirror our partners. Whoever we believe and feel that our partner is, that is a mirror to our soul, okay? And this is something that a lot of people do not understand. And I think it is so funny that they don't understand it. Now, I'm not shaming them or judging them because, they're not all relationship gurus like me, okay? But, man, I just love being so intelligent with all this stuff. But I think it's so funny when they always speak poorly of someone that they have chosen in their past and dated for a long time, right? Was very involved with romantically for a long time. It's always so funny when they speak poorly of them because I'm like, hey, knock, knock. That's you. You might be speaking poorly of someone who did you wrong and was A, B, and C and did all of these horrible things to you and how they just destroyed and ruined your life. But guess what? That is a mirror of you. Please understand this, people. So therefore, watch what you say and think about what you say before you say it. Okay. A lot of the times when conflict arises in relationships and we feel an attachment to someone, depending on your attachment style, you will either hold dearly for dear life or you will flee, okay? And sometimes men will flee if a conflict arises and they don't feel an incentive to try to resolve the problem and face the conflict together through communication with one another, which, by the way, I can help you with. Okay. They may flee, and that is unfortunately sometimes the case for some men, which leads me to the very next point because this all ties in together, and this is the biggest one and actually more personally relatable to me. Which is he doesn't know how to handle the feelings that he is having. He cannot hold the container of your femininity, vulnerability, or emotional states. Oh boy, something that is kind of personal to me and almost funny because it is pathetic. But yes, unfortunately, sometimes men cannot hold the container of what you have to offer. Your vulnerable female emotions, they can't hold the container of all of that and what that entails, okay? And this actually stems from the lack of containment in his own feminine emotions, okay? An integrated man of the masculine and the feminine, an integrated man, a high value man, as they say on the internet, is going to be a man who is very well integrated in his female emotions. He has strong feminine connection to what his feelings are and how he has dealt with things in his past and in his childhood, okay? He has a good system for growing through that. He holds himself accountable and self-reflects and is on a journey to healing and growing. That is going to be an integrated man. But unfortunately, there are plenty of men who don't have that connection because they are terrified of their own emotions, okay? And this is going to be a man who might sound kind of contradicting, but is actually sitting in his feminine, wounded feminine energy. And that is because masculinity, healthy masculinity, holds structure and containment for feminine energy and feminine emotion and feminine vulnerability to flow, to be free, to feel. Masculine structure holds the containment of the female. And so a healthy masculine man will be able to navigate through his own emotions, whether they are negative or positive, and know how to progress through them appropriately, okay? Masculinity is strength. And when a man is not strong in his emotions, when he is not portraying that strength, he is more in his wounded energy. And I used to date a guy who was very much sitting in his wounded energy and very terrified of female vulnerability. He had never had a woman who pushed him to be a more strong, emotionally strong, physically strong man. He had never quite had a woman who actually listened to what he had to say, encouraged him to lead, who didn't necessarily go in wanting to change who he was. He had never felt that strength coming from a woman, and it absolutely terrified him. It terrified him. And unfortunately, those men who are not comfortable with that, who don't understand how to deal with the feelings and vulnerable feelings, the very high emotion of that, they will pull away. They will sometimes ghost. They will sometimes flee and leave. Or even to give you another situation, maybe he does actually have strong feelings for you. Maybe he truly does care about you. Maybe he truly does want what is best for you. Maybe he truly does have a lot of love for you and want to see you with the life that you desire for yourself. And maybe he is struggling with his own internal self-worth and feels that he cannot give you that. Maybe he feels so much care and love for you that it literally feels so uncomfortable for him that he needs to flee, run away from it. Because that feeling of love and excitement for someone sits very uncomfortable in his nervous system, and this goes all the way back to his childhood and the way that the relationship he had with his parents was interpreted to his nervous system. Okay, hope you're following me along here. Basically, true intimacy, true connection is a very scary place to be. It is a very scary place to go. And you just can't blame some guys for being terrified of it. Now, as someone like myself who is not, because that's where my mind is set, it is almost laugh worthy, like I said, to witness someone in that place. But thank God that I have so much knowledge on this and am very intelligent in that department, so I can very deeply understand and feel sympathy for the way that they are struggling through that and dealing with things of their childhood and their past. Okay, next reason why men may flee, run away, disappear, or ghost. And that is, maybe there was a deal breaker. Maybe you were getting to know each other. Things seemed to be going great, but you hit a little bump in the road and came across something that was not to be taken lightly. It was a huge deal breaker for the two of you. And let me give you an example of this. If you want to build a family and have kids and get married pretty quickly, but he doesn't see himself having kids, or maybe he already has some and he doesn't see himself wanting more, and he is absolutely in no way open to the idea or possibility of that happening again with another woman. That is a huge deal breaker, okay? Or if you don't want to have kids and you maybe see your life panning out differently, and he does want to build a family and have kids, and those values just don't quite align for the two of you, but you might have a great connection. You might have compatible interests, but that deal breaker is alone is enough to divide and separate you and end whatever beautiful thing that you have going. Now, I know that this is kind of weird and maybe a way that you haven't quite perceived it, but it can be a way of a man protecting and providing for you, okay? He is saving you and himself the heartache of progressing something along deeper that is just going to end up deterring in the end. So he will run away and leave you high and dry, perhaps, just simply because you don't see yourself aligned on the same path for your future. And if he knows that you really, really want to get married and have children, and he just feels he can't give that to you or just doesn't want to, then there it is. I had a guy tell me one time that give me all of these excuses as to why it just could not possibly work. Because struggling in his own belief system, he just believed that there was no possible way that this specific relationship dynamic could ever work or be fruitful, right? Because of his own belief system. Okay. So he believed that it couldn't work because I needed to go on and have kids for myself, start a family, and he was never open to that, or at least hadn't thought about it. So very much so it could be that, or even just the age difference in you and him. Believe it or not, there are men out there who may be much older than you, but they are very integrated, humble, good, selfless men. And sometimes if, the age difference is too great, they have to protect and provide for you by just being upfront. Like, they can't put you through a situation where you're without them for too many years. Or you're having to, take care of them because they're just way ahead of you in life and maybe becoming sickly. So that is another form of protecting and providing, and also a deal breaker. Okay. So yes, sometimes men will disappear or ghost or flee because of deal breakers that just simply cannot be resolved or worked through. Alrighty, and I think the last thing that I'm going to mention to you today as to why men ghost, flee, or disappear on you, and that is he got with someone else. Okay, now let's talk about this a bit. Okay, so if you are dating people, and you are just casually meeting, getting to know people, as you should be doing, especially if you are one of my ladies following my content. You should be dating multiple guys at a time, letting multiple men pursue you and court you out. Well, guess what? Men are out here doing this too. Now, I'm not talking about getting into these like deep, long-term relationships. I'm talking about casually dating women and communicating and conversating and taking out multiple different women, which they are allowed to do, and you are also allowed to do. So perhaps he could flee or ghost because he decided to get more serious with another potential mate. He decided to pursue someone else more intentionally, and because maybe their values aligned better, maybe the conversation and energy was better, maybe their lifestyles were more compatible and they had more similar interests. All of these different reasons as to why they could have chosen someone else and decided to be more intentional with pursuing that other woman. Now, also, I will say, he may have also gotten back with an ex. Now, we all want what is familiar and comfortable to our nervous systems. As human beings, our brains are wired to desire something that is comfortable and familiar to us. And yes, while we know how crazy the relationships here are, the toxicity of the back and forth, the hot and cold, the in and out relationships, sometimes men are caught up in that thing too. It's not just women. Men are also getting caught up in those hot and cold relationships themselves. And so sometimes if he broke up or went through a breakup phase with an ex and decided to try to move on and start talking to other women, he might meet you and communicate with you for a while, but then the ex pops back up and says that she wants to work it out with him, or, they decide to give it another try and go through another hot and cold back and forth dynamic, and they have an addiction to that. They have an addiction to that kind of instability and chaos, okay? Because that's all it is chaos in the nervous system. So he may ghost because he got back with an ex-lover, someone of the past, someone that felt familiar to him, someone that maybe he really did love and want to be with, but things just weren't the right time, or the communication was off, and it just wasn't working, okay? So very high possibility that he started dating someone else, or he got back with a past lover and decided to drop you like a hot potato because he is back to pursuing that other woman. Now, all of these things and possibilities sometimes just suck. Some of these reasons for why men pull away and lose interest, they just suck. They hurt, especially when we are not grounded in who we are and what we desire for ourselves, and we are not strong in our femininity. But, my dear, that is why I am here to help you through all of that and through becoming the best feminine version of yourself, so that way you can attract men into your life, and you get to set the standard, and you get to hold the power and have this deep intuitive knowing that any man would be lucky to be with you and even luckier to marry you. Okay, so you can hold all that power for yourself, so that way, despite anything that is happening around you, any situation that might be brought upon you, any man that tries to come in and play with your little mind and play some, sneaky games, then you, my dear, already know how to deal with it, how to handle it, and how to say, to hell with that. You hold your own value because you are preserving yourself for that special someone, for your husband, and you hold all of that value that you have preserved so highly and so strongly, and you end up getting the kind of man that loves, cherishes, and adores every single piece of who you are. You are basically unavailable for buffoonery and nonsense. And can I just throw in here before we close out? With my grandpa passing, I had a lot of time to reflect and be so open with him before he left us, to how great of a man that he was, how much of a hard worker and selfless man that he was, and how they just don't simply make men like that anymore, and that is where my standard for you ladies are. The standard for you ladies lies, okay? This is a man who has never once lost faith in marriages, in families, in his wives, honoring and cherishing his wives, and what family does mean to him, and the importance and the value that he put on marriage and being a good husband. And he was married multiple times, and just the best man, the best husband, would do anything for anyone, never said no, just this soft, light spirit that people could just so easily admire. And the hardest worker. Such a gentleman, never allowed my grandmother to open the door for herself. And all of those qualities, my dear, all of those traits of a good man, they are much harder to find today. They are. But guess what? If that is your standard that you have for yourself and to look up to, I promise you, you can attract that too and settle for nothing less. But first, you have to become the woman that is able to allow and attract that into her life as a feminine woman. So don't always go automatically blaming men and assuming that men don't want to be this, okay? Because it all does start internally, and being able to accept and receive that for ourselves, okay? So I'm going to end it here. If you guys have any questions or recommendations for videos, make sure you send me an email or even leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you are not already, and I will see you guys in my next video. I love you.